So I put a little bit to the door to save it from electricity, and that's before we all had like locks outside our door. It could be moved. So then I'm like trying to get the line. Moving the whole thing. It's like 3 a.m. So, no. Finally got the locks up in the door. Looking on the hallway. Because here's the it's like the electricity was like that. And inward feces and water. That's their full feet over. Make that but here's the problem.
So I may not be able to have a live because they were saying his birthday's in November.
Yeah, it'd be done because there was a couple cars in front of it. We could see that's electricity.
But I reached out to the everything that I said
My brother though, my buddy, he's ready to go. My brother comes out sleepy after.
So when that goes out, it's a roll closure. So that's okay. It's a rolling closure. So that's not the 5 days that I take problem. Because you're not literally putting the streets down for hours. That whole to host when you do people take down there. So that was their big thing. Is it? And I love
Actually came on.
to just
So you don't need somebody to go.
I just need a leadership position. That's all I want.
Anything else? Anything you got all figured out?
If everyone stand, please, we'll call this city council meeting to order. Let's have a word of silence. Thank you. We'll ask Councilwoman Willow Hambrick if she would lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, Madam Clerk, if you would have a roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
Present. Mr. Showalter. Here. Mr. Hampton. Here. Mr. Stone.
Here.
Mrs. Sackett.
Yes, here.
You all saw the minutes in your packet. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Allen. Second by Mr. Hampton. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Item number 4, receipt of the check registry. Councilman, Council, you should have received that. If you have, please raise your hand. Let the record show that all councilmen received the check registry. At this time, we have public comments. I want to remind you that during the public comments, you will have 4 minutes to state your business on this council, and that will be timed, and that at the end of that 4 minutes, we'll let you know. And again, let's be respectful of the time and also for others to be able to use it. Thank you. All right, it's a Christy Dunn with Schoolhouse Champions. Okay, I'm sorry, event. Okay, all right.
Hello, council
Sorry,
members.
we've got a section for events, so we'll call you
Oh,
back
you're
up.
gonna
Sorry.
lead the way? Okay, I'll
Yeah,
wait.
sorry.
All right, let's see. Let's see. Okay, mental health.
Yes.
And who is this?
Let's get down to actually that last one, the
All right,
other agenda items.
Okay, Caitlin Tudor, Regional Industrial Development.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Caitlin Tudor. I wanted to follow up because last city council meeting, there were some things said towards the end that I didn't have an opportunity to address at that point. So I wanted to come back and address them now. It pertains to the Regional Industrial Development Authority that was discussed. I know very little about it. However, I was concerned by some of the things that were said, some of the things that I've noticed since I've started kind of paying attention to what goes on with the council and in our community. There was a statement said that this plan is necessary for the vision of our community. That, sorry, I'm out of breath. That the development is necessary to continue to help develop our community, to put resources into our community. That's fine, that's great. We've been on a specific track for, it seems like about 40 years, long before I got here, with Toyota. That's great. My problem is that I don't understand and I can't see, and nobody has made any kind of mention what this kind of development or any future development is actually going to put into the specific community that our families are being raised in. What these developments are going to actually produce other than potential jobs. I don't know if she's here or not, but back in December, I actually had the privilege of meeting with Kimberly Rice with Parks and Rec, and had an amazing conversation with her. Kind of delved into some of the things that surround the pavilion and lack of resources and things like that. And it was made mention that, you know, they would love to expand, but the funding isn't there. But yet we're talking about expanding all of this industrial level expansion to bring in resources and therefore obviously bring in money, revenue. And I specifically would like to know what is being done to expand the resources and the opportunities for the actual individual community members, families, school-age kids. There's not enough childcare. There's not enough opportunities. There's zero opportunities for teenagers in this community. What are we doing as a vision for continued expansion to make sure that our community at an infrastructure level is actually being taken care of? What are we doing to put money into the actual community to avoid another water debacle and avoid more disastrous issues as the expansion continues to grow? So my question to you, obviously it's not up for debate right now, but I would really truly, and I know I represent a lot of moms out there, what are we doing to improve our community at a family and individual, specifically a child level basis with this continued expansion? So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there any others? At this time, we have events. And now, Christy Dunn. Now it's your turn.
Speaking of children, we are holding the 10th annual Squash Champions this year, which is a big deal. We want permission to shut down the city streets on April the 20th for that event. To go a little bit further and tell you just a little snippet about that, this was started as a complete nonprofit within the Lemons Mill PTA, and Mason PTA has absorbed that this year. Lemons Mill, you know, it's a huge undertaking to have an event like this. It benefits the schools in the district. This year, I think we have 11 of the participating Scott County schools. Last year, we raised just under $10,000, and 100% of that goes back into the schools. That provides enrichment opportunities, education opportunities, books, technology, all those sorts of things that, as you know, are lacking in public school funding. So we would like permission to hold the 5K on April 20th.
Do I entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion is made by Ms. Brent, second by Ms. Hambrick. Are there further questions and or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes.
It says, will streets need to be closed? You got yes.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It said,
Alonzo.
Sorry. What streets will need to be closed?
It's the large 5K route.
Okay, I'm not
Okay,
a
so-
runner. I
Me
watch a lot
either,
of
but I
TV.
sure will take that registration. You can watch.
You can count on
okay?
that.
All right.
Will these be downtown streets?
Yeah,
Or-
it starts in front of the college and it goes down that way up like the Jefferson and down by Georgetown Middle, loops back around, comes back down the other side of the block and around.
Okay, I was just a little concerned about downtown streets being closed. I know our downtown merchants have voiced some
The main
concerns
street
about
isn't
that.
closed. They do go down Main Street for about 2 minutes.
Okay,
But
so after they go through, the street be open?
that's right.
Okay.
Are there other further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Next, we have Brenda with Southern Nights Car Club.
Good afternoon again. I'm back to check and see if we can have our cruises again this year. We're only asking for 4. I'm with the Southern Nights of Central Kentucky. Been with them for over 30 years. We are established here. You know we do make a lot of donations to a lot of charities in the state of Kentucky. I have tried to come up with some good dates because I don't want to interfere with tourism because we've already talked about that. We would like to have 4 cruises, April the 20th from 4 to 7, July the 20th from 5 to 8, August the 17th from 5 to 8, September the 21st from 5 to 8. We would like to have the streets closed at like 3:30, give them time enough to get in, only in April because of the weather and the time span. The other is we would love to go all the way to Mulberry. We did last year, and we did have one city cop that did volunteer to come in, and we did pay him to stay up there. So we would propose to have cruises if we can.
All right, do I have do we need to do this separately or?
I would like to make the motion, but I got questions.
Okay,
So
well,
I guess we have-
let's do the motion first. okay?
Motion.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is made by Ms. Brent, second made by Mr. Stone. Now, are there questions and or comments?
We had talked last year, I think, about not doing it in this, here on the main street, but doing it somewhere else so we can keep the street open and not close the street down. But I think having it behind City Hall,
It didn't work.
it didn't work. What was the issues with that?
Everybody, there is every Shelbyville, Lawrenceburg, Harrisburg, every one of them closes down streets. They love, the people with cars love the downtown because it gives them time to walk down the streets, the ice cream shop, the restaurants up here, and they just love to be in there. So, and I know it's hard, but they were very good to us last year.
So
I
you-
have I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. So you haven't had it back here yet, have you?
Yes, we
You
did. We
and it-
started back there, and that didn't work because then if you have an activity going on somewhere or you have something else, that gets completely full back there with other vehicles, and it doesn't work.
Are there other activities going on during this time?
We have
I know there's a
cakewalks.
5K run, looks like.
Yeah, well, now, they was with us last year, but they're up on the other end of Mulberry, if I'm not mistaken. They're down there, and we were here with them last year when they were running.
My question, since you brought up tourism, is gonna be geared toward Lori.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you talked to the merchants downtown quite a bit, and I know that this is not the first time they've been downtown. So what is your take on that?
So from the downtown businesses perspective,
Just come on up, Lori.
Come up, thanks, Lori.
they do not mind the car show.
I know.
You know that. The biggest problem that they have is street closures before 4 p.m. on a Saturday. As you know, small businesses, Saturday is the biggest day for them. That's when they make the most money. So to have streets closed on Friday or Saturday prior to their closing time makes it very difficult. So that would be one thing that they would request, that streets do not close until after 4 p.m., either on a Friday or Saturday, because I think there'll be somebody coming for a Friday night at about asking for a closure at 2 here in the next little bit. The other thing is, and the police can probably help with this, is that there were some cars that left before the streets opened back up. And there were some safety concerns about that people were still walking around, looking at cars, and I believe the issue was the fact that it had started to sprinkle. And I get it, anybody who's got one of those cars, they don't want it to get wet, and they don't want bugs on it either. But for safety's sake, we would just ask, and the businesses would like to see, that no one leaves that, pulls out of there prior to the streets being opened back up. So if it's over at 7, those vehicles do not leave before 7. The other thing is that they do not come in before the barricades are up. That was the other issue. The other thing, which, because when I saw that this was on the agenda, I did reach out to some of the businesses to make sure that I relayed what they wanted. It's nothing personal, has nothing to do with me. It's about good business on their part. They would prefer for downtown not to be closed more than one time a month. Most of your dates are just the one time, which is really good because Miss Brenda and I talked about that and worked on it prior to. But just keeping that in mind going forward, when people drive within a 50-mile radius to come to Georgetown to eat or shop and they see our downtown closed, they come back the next weekend, it's closed again. To them, Georgetown's closed all the time. And we definitely don't want to give that appearance. One time a month, they do not mind. 2 or more, and that is a big concern for them. But like I said, Miss Brenda and I talked about that. There will be 2 in August if you go with the one day, only because if you all recall when I was up here about the concert series, I wasn't planning on doing one in August. But because we had a band bail and I had to reschedule, we have put them into the August schedule. However, I have let downtown know that, so they are aware that there could potentially be 2. In a perfect world, we would combine. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that. Her car show's big and my concerts has been growing. Yeah. So I know that has been suggested in the past.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Go ahead.
There are other events as well, Lori, other than the car show, that may be requesting streets closed. How do you manage that? How do we?
Is there a
I mean, if we
calendar?
say, sorry. If we say yes to this, then how do we manage this only one time a month, that the streets are closed?
Well,
Are you referring to each person, they come before you all to get approved?
Yes,
And
I'm
I
just,
think
hold
Tracy's
on, let's
doing
talk
that
just a minute.
right now.
That's something where if you want to know about all that information, let's just go ahead and what we'll do is, we can get that out, count information out to you at a different time. So,
Yep.
but this is not the time to go over that and find out on that. So the motion is, as right now, is to talk about, do you want to approve of them closing the streets on that particular time?
Mayor, I've had the merchants in downtown talk to me over this. You used to have more than 4, right? Or is,
Yes, but I had already talked to her, May and June. She has something already going on. October, last year, we didn't have it on the docket, but we were here, and it was just a mistake, because it didn't get put there. They had something going on with coming down the streets for Halloween or something, but it worked out good, because we did leave before they got all set up. Yes.
I'm wondering if it might be best to table this until we can see a calendar of how many things are possibly already scheduled and how we can try to accommodate as much as we can without closing the roads more than the merchants feel comfortable with. I need to think about this a little bit more, so.
Mayor, I also have a question as well, or a concern, is that after hearing what Lori had to say, is that the times that are proposed, can we move them up to 4 o'clock or 4:30
Right.
instead of where they're at, and maybe extend it a little bit longer? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if we tabled it, maybe we could work it that way.
Yeah.
So we have a motion at this time, or we're going to take the motion off?
Robert's rules.
So someone want to withdraw the motion? Okay, so you withdrawing the motion? Okay, so I guess at this point in time is to have you come back and we'll look at tabling this and coming back and looking at,
Looking at the
once we,
time, yeah.
and I will contact with Lori to find out what scheduling she has in play and see what we can work out, and we'll try to see if we, at a later time, to accommodate that.
That'd be
schedule.
wonderful. Thank
Okay?
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any other events? All right. A couple on mayor comments. I have a kind of a whole list of updates and kind of reports to give you, so I'll just start. First, I want to call City Engineer Eddie Hightower to come up, and I want him to talk about the award that we're going to get.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the pleasure of being able to attend last week up in Covington, awards ceremony from the Kentucky Concrete Association. They're a trade group that does concrete construction and supplies materials and that sort of thing. And it's a statewide organization. And the city of Georgetown, I was pleased to find out, has received a Concrete Design Excellence Award for the streetscape project downtown at Royal Springs over the bridge and the viaduct. And we received this plaque. I'll pass it up to the mayor when I'm done. And they gave a long presentation of the project. It was very interesting. It was originally constructed in 1789 when George Washington was elected president. And it's the oldest dried stacked stone structure in the state of Kentucky, and the oldest bridge in the state of Kentucky. And it was designed and constructed by Elijah Craig. So there's a lot of history. As you all know, we rebuilt the walls as part of this project and redid the sidewalks and the lighting. And this is the award that the city received.
All right.
Great.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, I think Ms. Hambrick sent an email to us earlier on the update as to the sidewalks, and give you a kind of update on that. Eddie has also been working with the sidewalk shaving pilot project, and we hope to bring this proposal to City Council in March. We are making sure procurement requirements have been met before bringing this to the council and for consideration. Additionally, we hope to include funds in the year 25 budget for continuation of the sidewalk cost sharing program. And I believe another update is people wanted to know what's going on down on the corner of Clayton and also Broadway. Columbia Gas approached us, the city, requesting to allow its contractor to store certain equipment and material on this property during their project which they're doing for roads, with the goal of limiting travel time, road disruption, safety concerns, project timelines, etc. And I believe allowing this access to the site will also benefit the city. And what this will do is, for them to have to bring this equipment to a particular site, they will have to go use areas that they're not working on and going through neighborhoods and so on. So it will be easier for them to put it in that particular spot and make it the central spot for them to use to make it benefit for everybody. So that's going on at that time.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, next, a little bit about the City Hall project. As you know, you will see later in the meeting our timeline for the City Hall project is going to be impacted a little more significantly than originally anticipated. Having said that, we are thankful that our design and construction management team are coordinating to obtain the best pricing possible in response to the unforeseen conditions discovered during demolition and looking forward to hearing from them shortly. So they'll be doing that. I believe Mr. Showalter asked about the streetlights, and to give you an update on that, Eddie has been in touch with KU, and they have provided a project update. Work should begin on the lights at 460 Bypass, 460 Rock Creek, and 460 Connector Road within the next month. The intersection of 460 Windermere Path, Thorndale Drive is sitting on solid rock. And KU is recommended that the lights at this intersection be placed on wooden poles with overhead feeds. The cost of excavating for metal poles would be very expensive. So that's something we'll have to bring back to council on that particular part as we maneuver as to what the cost would be for them to do that. And we'll make sure you get an update on that. Colony Boulevard turn lane, as you know, we talked about this at the last meeting, that the construction bids were going to go out March 6th, and we'll hope to have an update on that. The capital priorities coming out in capital and operating priorities work session, we asked council members to submit their top 5 capital priorities, and these were they had listed: the body cameras for Georgetown Police Department, the stormwater infrastructure strand contract amendment, Lexus Way, Old Oxford, and the fire station. We are currently working through the other list priorities to more clearly determine where they fall. Sidewalk improvements, Bridge Street Bridge, Parks and Rec, quality of life projects are the others identified, but at least by a couple of council members, and some of the council members listed projects already underway, or projects that falls under the operating umbrella. So those will be removed from the capital priority list. And another update report that city clerk has reported that collections are going well. The second round of notices that for the will be sent out shortly for any parties delinquent on payment. And the Lemons Mill Bridge project is dated to likely to start date somewhere in mid-April. And so once that gets going, we will let you know. There is a possibility there will be that street closure at that time while they are working on that, and we will keep the city updated as to of the construction that is going on at that particular time. All right. Okay. Next on the agenda. On my pick, by the way, here, folks. Okay. We have the council committee reports, and we have finance.
Well, I sent the report in, but didn't get confirmation on it.
Okay.
You want to punt till the next meeting, that's
Yeah,
fine. I'm
that's
sorry, I
fine.
hadn't provided anything.
Okay,
back yet.
yeah, we'll just have to.
Yeah, you want to do your next meeting? Okay. So we'll
Unless you-
take, we will,
I'm sorry, do you?
No, this is the one from previous, I
Yeah.
believe, yes.
okay. So we will just bring that to our next meeting along with the fire committee on the next meeting. Thank you. We're going to kind of switch gears a little bit, and we're going to let the chief administrative officer come in and bump that up, because there's a couple of things he wants to do at that time. Okay?
Thanks, Mayor, and like Mayor said, just based on a couple of these items and the timing, we're gonna go ahead and move forward with item A, the second reading of the annexation ordinance, sponsors Connie and Greg. If you wanna go ahead and read that.
An ordinance annexing into the city of Georgetown certain real property containing approximately 86.90 plus or minus acres located at or around 1530 Paynes Depot Road in Scott County, Kentucky. Summary 1. Annexes into Georgetown city limits by written consent of the property owner in accordance with KRS 81A.412, approximately 86.90 plus or minus acres of property located at or around 1530 Paynes Depot Road in Scott County, Kentucky. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time February the 12th, 2024. Publicly read the second time February 26th, 2024.
All right. At this time, is there anything else you want to? Okay, at this time, do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Allen. Do you have a second? Second made by Mr. Hampton. Are there further questions and/or comments?
I do have a comment, because we received an email today. I just want to make sure that, addressing Joe Kane and the attorney for the annexation, right?
Yes.
That it is within our urban service boundary, correct? Yeah.
Yes, it is within the urban service boundary. It's north of Cane Run Creek, but inside the greenbelt, inside the urban service boundary.
And in this zone change and annexation, you don't have a preliminary plan other than just the Bourbon thing for now, right?
This includes more area than is being considered for the zone change. So the area that's included is just to join city limits to the distillery site. The rest of the area will remain zoned to A1 until some later date when they develop that area. They'll have to go through a zone change hearing, and bring that to city council.
Okay, I just
That
wanted
time.
that on the record today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Is there any other questions and/or comments? At this time, we
I have a
have.
comment.
Yes.
Sorry, I was getting my notes together. The last time I think we talked about, I asked about the odor.
Yeah.
And I think, you know,
Sorry, Councilman, we're just talking about the annexation right now.
Annexation.
okay,
If you could say that question for the zone change.
Yeah.
okay, sorry, thank you.
We'll address it then.
Give you more time to think about it.
Okay, are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the motions, excuse me, have a roll call, thank you.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilkins-Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Okay, let the record reflect that the motion passed. Next is the second reading for the zone change ordinance, portion 1530 Paynes Depot Road, sponsors Connie Tackett and Greg Hampton. Or do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Ms. Tackett. Do you have a second? Second made by Mr. Hampton. Are there further questions and/or comment? Now, Mr. Allen? Yeah, read it first, then Mr. Allen.
I think you read it and then make the motion.
Before he read.
Yeah.
Robert?
In order to changing the zone classification of certain real property containing approximately 30 plus or minus acres located at 1530 Paynes Depot Road, Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 to B5. Summary: 1, rezones approximately 30 plus or minus acres located at 1530 Paynes Depot Road, Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 to B5. 2, provides for repeal of inconsistent law, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Public introduced and read the first time February the 12th, 2024. Publicly read the second time February the 26th, 2024.
All right, now, let's try this again. Okay.
Can we just use our motion? Just making a motion. Okay.
Make a motion. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion made by Ms. Tackett. Second made by Mr. Hampton. Now, are there further questions and/or comments? Mr. Allen?
Question about the odor.
Yes, and there's a state permitting process that we're going through right now that will regulate that.
Okay, because okay, I'll leave it at that.
Just like the one that they have for Buffalo Trace and Austin Nichols, that you can smell them all over central Kentucky?
Well, we're hoping that because of those distilleries having rick houses that have barrel storage for extended period of time, that's where the majority of the smell generates from, per the industry. And so we believe that our smell will be much less than those because there is no storage on this property.
And there's no intention to ever have storage?
There's not a plan in front of you all or the commission right now requesting that, no.
So in other words, eventually?
I don't want to speculate and cut somebody off from potentially developing that property, but as we stand here tonight, no.
All right. Are there further questions and/or comments? At this time, we have a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilkins-Brent?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have the project update, City Hall.
Before we call the city hall folks up, I think maybe because you got into a lot of mayor's comments, we skipped the printed mayor's comments on the agenda. So we've got that executive order making the airport board appointment, and then Stacy, I know, has some information on the revenue forecasting, so.
Okay, I'll go back to that.
Yep.
Thank you. At this time, I sent you all, you should have gotten a Jason Stone, who has applied for the, along with others, for the position as to our airport board. This is an appointment made by Judge Covington and myself. So, and through lengthy process of talking with several individuals that applied, he and I chose Jason Stone to be that representative for that board. And you have his information in front of you. Unless you have any questions, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the recommendations for him for the airport board. Motion made by Mr. Hampton. Second made by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and/or comments?
Yeah, just a question. You said in the process, you talked to those that have applied, so they have gotten feedback?
Yes, they have got feedback. I let them know that they was not selected. Yep. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Next, the revenue forecasting project, and Stacy.
I just wanted to give you a quick update that this will be coming your way tomorrow. I will send out a spreadsheet that will have a few years of history on our revenues and a page of notes that goes along with that to help you. And again, just kind of our exercise to kick off our budgeting season and let you all make some projections that we may or may not use in the process of budgeting, but obviously, if you have any questions as you work through that, you can let me know. If possible, if you're able to return those by noon on March 25th, then I can compile the results and hand them back out at the March 25th council meeting for you all to see what everyone predicted. Again, those are anonymous. We do not put anyone's names on those when they come back out on the results. So if you have any questions, let me know, but it'll show up in your inboxes tomorrow. If you need a hard copy, let me know.
Yeah, thank you.
And one other comment I did not mention in my last comment is that the street paving, council, if you have a list of those that you're going to ask to be looked at for street paving, send that list to me, and I will get that out to Eddie, and then we'll go from there. So, all right. All right, next is the project update for City Hall.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and call the design team up and ask that Studio 46 display the presentation. I know that the council heard an update, I believe it was November, December, kind of going through some of the discoveries that the construction management team made during the demolition process within a 100-plus-year-old building. I think it's no surprise to anybody that some interesting and in some cases historically significant discoveries were made. So the last they came to us, the update was, hey, we found some things, we'll be back when we know how much it costs and how it's going to impact the schedule. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Well, it's good to see you guys again. We do have a couple of folks from Brown and Cubicam with us today. We are primarily focused on the structural changes, so they are our experts and can answer any specific questions. I'm just going to lay it all out for you all first, and then we also have our construction management team with us as well to further answer any specific questions. So I will also point out that there is a typo in your packet. It'll be right on the screen, but not on your packet, so it is sadly evidence that I am not perfect. but I will point that out once we get there. So moving on to the first slide. Quick recap, when we last met, like Devin said, we reviewed the uncovered items that we found during demolition, and at that time we were finalizing a bulletin to put all those changes together and obtain pricing for those potential changes. So where are we now? We've gotten initial pricing from all the changes posted in that bulletin. We are still evaluating some of those items. We're still trying to negotiate some pricing on some of those and want a little bit more time to make sure that we are properly capturing everything. So in order to keep things moving forward today, we've separated the critical structural items out for review and approval. The remaining items will continue to be evaluated and pricing negotiated, which will be presented to you all again at a later date. So just to move on to the next slide, a quick recap on what we found. So everything on the left column are all of the hidden items found that we talked about last time. So we found some steel columns embedded in stud walls. We found masonry walls furred out by new stud walls, original wood stud walls instead of masonry walls, damaged window framing, water infiltration at the lower level, partial height furred walls, jail cell windows in the lower level, which is still exciting, but we'll come back to that, and original wood floors, also very exciting, and we will come back to that. And just quickly to point out, technology got the better of me on this presentation since mine is formatted for PC and not Mac. So on the right-hand column, the focus items for the first change order are just the first 3 items. Originally, the last items were grayed out so that you did not have to pay attention to those. But again, formatting and technology. So that's 2 against me for today. So I will do better next time. So the focus items for this first change order are the steel columns that we found embedded in the stud walls and what we need to do with that. The masonry walls that we found we didn't know were there and what we need to do with that. And then where we have wood stud walls instead of structural masonry walls, and again, what we need to do with that. So moving on to the next slide, just a quick recap to remind you guys what we found. We have steel columns in the basement and on the second floor that we didn't know were there until we removed walls. There's also a steel beam and a masonry wing wall that you see on that image on the right that we did not know were there, and now we have to figure out what to do to deal with those. Moving on to the next slide. We found a lot of wood stud walls that we thought were masonry walls. Typically in these historic buildings, masonry walls stack. In our building, they are not. So that's primarily in the stairwell, and so since we are extending that stairwell up, we need load-bearing masonry walls there. So we have some changes we have to make with those walls. And then we have some wood stud walls in the corridor on the second floor, which again, since we are going to be renovating the third floor above, we need something structural in that wall. It was thought to be load-bearing masonry. It is wood studs, which will not support the renovations that we need to do on the third floor. So we have some extra work that we need to do with that to make sure that we're properly supported. And this is me playing structural engineer, which is why I have my friends here to help me out. And then moving on to the next slide, which, one more slide, there we go. The areas affected for these structural changes are primarily where we have the council chambers. That is where, we're making the most changes with taking the vault out and trying to make that bigger. That's also where on the second floor, if you go to the next slide, where we found some steel columns that we did not know we had and have to figure out then how to make sure we support everything. Again, moving on to the next slide. In the council chambers, that resulted in adding steel columns I'm not sure what happened to the graphic on the right, and there it is. But these are all things that we had not planned on originally that we now have to make sure everything is properly supported for the rest of the renovation. So next slide, what does this all mean? For the proposed changes, and you'll see I tried to color code this so that we could see what was going to be a credit versus what was going to be an add to the project. Because there are things that we are going to be taking out of the scope and then things we're going to be putting back into the scope. So just quickly moving down that list, we're going to keep the existing beam and floor structure at the second floor above the city council chambers. We were originally going to take that entire floor out and put brand new structure in. We are not going to do that anymore. We are going to keep the existing beam and floor structure there. They're primarily because of the structure that we found, but also because of the original wood floors that we found throughout the building and trying to maintain that where we can. So there will be a credit back to the project for the new wood I-joists that are no longer being installed for that floor structure. And there's a credit back to the project for the new wood subfloor that is no longer being installed in that area of the project. At the second floor office space, where we found a steel column we didn't know was there, we have to relocate that column so it is not in the middle of a corridor. We need to make sure it works with the proposed layout. We need to remove that portion of the masonry wall and add a new steel column and beam to help support that so that it all works with the proposed layout that you guys have seen and approved. So that will be an add to the project for new steel members being installed. We also need to add steel beam and columns at the wood stud wall that I mentioned at the second floor corridor wall to help support the third floor structure. That will be an add to the project for new steel members being installed. And then, like I mentioned, where we're taking that stair tower up to the third floor, we need to add concrete masonry units at the interior stair tower to make sure that it is properly supported. And that will be an add to the project for the new CMU and associated steel that goes with that. So I'm sure what you're all wondering then is what is the cost impact? So moving on to the final slide. We have 4 major scope packages that are affected with this. The demolition, the general trades with the wood floor structure that I mentioned, the masonry and structural steel. We can go through each one of those individually. So as you can see, there is a credit back to the project on the demolition of $15,800.02. There is a credit back to the project on the general trades for $1,330.20. There is an add to the project for the masonry for $14,981.82. And then there is an add to the project for the structural steel, the new steel we have to add, for $31,316. So if you look at the cost of work and compare that cost of work, what we are having to take out versus what we are having to put back in is a subtotal change of $29,167.60, which is, we were trying to keep that as close as we could when looking at what the options were for swapping those systems out. We were trying to keep that cost impact as low as possible. The additional items associated with this work is where the big cost comes in. Because we are having to add these new members, because we are keeping a lot of the existing structure in place, we have to shore those walls and floors during the course of that installation to make sure that nothing falls down. And again, I will have my experts explain that in more detail if you would like. That is, again, the larger piece of this ad, which is $98,500, and that is shoring for 4 months, correct? And then per the contract, there are CM fees of 5%, which is $6,383.38. So that brings the total cost for this first change order to $134,050.98. I think the big thing to note is the text on the right side is, what does this mean? The change order will not change the overall GMP. So our GMP remains at the $12,499,566.50. We have a contingency built into that of $775,041.25, and we are going to be taking the cost of that change out of that contingency. So that's where my typo is on your packet. The change order cost is what you see on the screen, that $134,50.98, which leaves the remaining contingency at $636,864.38. That was a lot of information to throw at you all at once. So I will stop there and open it up for questions that you may have.
I have a question.
Yes.
I thought our contingency was separate than FF&E.
No, we had a combined contingency in FF&E of $775.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I misunderstood. I thought we had a 5% contingency, then we had FF&E.
We ended up lumping those together as part of the project.
So with all of these change orders that I know you're moving steadily along, do you have a time frame of when you might still be done?
With the pricing or with the project as a whole?
With the project as a whole.
Project as a whole. Yeah, so we do have a new proposed schedule, and I'll let you guys come up to answer any specific questions. We had hoped that we could keep the project within this year to complete. It looks like right now we are going to be pushing into 2025, I think around March of 2025. We still want to look for areas to try to expedite as things move along. Are there things that we can do to try to pull that back? But given where we are right now with those changes and what the time frame is, that is where the schedule is landing.
March 18th is what it pushes substantial completion to.
What was the date again?
March 18th, and the final completion is 4/4. It's basically 4 months. It's 120 days that we kind of met the contractors in the middle. It was really more towards 5.5, 6 months, and we kind of reduced that down the best we could. But like Elizabeth's saying, I mean, we can definitely try to find areas to speed up as we get moving. The main goal today is we've been sitting still for a while, so we just need to get the project moving so we can get you there.
Do you have any ideas to your percent of completion right now?
We're probably 10%, if that. I mean, all that's been done is demo, interior demo.
Are you far enough along in the demo process to really confidently say that you won't see any more surprises?
Yeah, that's my question.
The interior demo is relatively, I mean, it's complete for the most part. There's a few little, fit aesthetic things that have to come out that won't affect the structure. As far as unforeseen structural items, I don't think we'll see anymore, but.
Come on up, Brian, join the party.
Because I don't wanna guess it, so, I've been 15 years at this, a wood-free.
Microphone. I'll move over.
This is a historic wood frame building with wood going to joists, and it's got hard ceilings under all of it. So are we gonna see changes of this magnitude from a structural perspective? I would not expect that to be the case. Are we gonna run into, oh, we found a piece of rotted wood that was in a hidden cavern, or we found a joist that was notched with plumbing pipes that wasn't expected? I think those kind of changes are likely to see those kind of changes occur. Things that were concealed on a more isolated basis, not of the same magnitude, but I would not go as far as to say there's no more changes to occur.
What about with roof and exterior?
So we're getting close to starting the roof. We're 3 weeks out, I think. Kay told me today on getting material on site. The masonry work has commenced. They're getting close. They've tuck pointed and fixed a lot of the joints and facade around the building, and they started on the parapet wall last week, for the brick on top of the roof. Next week, I think they're planning on taking the elevator shaft up to the 3rd floor, so we're continuing with what we can, but we're running out of items to do, if that makes sense.
I'm sorry, where I was going with that is, you know, we're basically 17%, or we're 10% into the project, and we're already using 17% of our contingency. You know, what is this gonna do to us? I mean, do you feel like we're gonna have enough contingency here to cover the project with, you know, 90% more to go?
We're optimistic that the contingency will cover everything. I will also say that the remaining changes that we are not discussing this evening right now are sitting at a credit back. So the next change order presented, we are cautiously optimistic will be a credit back to the project. Those are the items that, again, we're continuing to evaluate to make sure that we're getting the best pricing possible and to make sure that we've incorporated everything so that it is complete. So, like I said, right now, that change order is showing a credit back to the project, which will help I hope, with your concern.
Yeah.
I have a question. What have we set aside for FF&E, cost-wise?
The
Y'all wanna speak to
contingency
that?
was 5%, so it's the difference of,
Right.
we'd have to calculate it, but.
Math.
No, because I don't do math in my head
I
very
think
well, so I apologize.
5% is what, 624,000?
I think we had about 200,000 in
I think it's like 220.
roughly for FF&E.
Just squeezing it.
So we, when we approve this change order, will that make you be able to move forward quicker?
Yes.
Got a question on the parking lot behind City Hall. Right now, there's a fenced-in area where you're keeping material. Now that the final completion date is being pushed out, I guess to April 4th of next year. And Mr. Hampton beat me to some of the same, we were on the same page thinking about the questions on the inside of the building, but also thinking on the exterior, we've got 2 big projects that are going to be starting very soon. One, the new
Pavilion.
the pavilion that's going to be built in the parking lot, as well as the new Justice Building that's going to be going up. Is that fenced-in area, is it going to stay there until the final completion date?
It may not be as large of an area that's there, because really the only exterior work we have is the geothermal well field. So we've already drilled the holes, we just have to dig the ditches and bring the pipes in. But we'll still need a lay-down area of some sort, so I think Kate has envisioned the guys coming in the next month and finishing the geothermal well field, so we could potentially shrink that area some. But just for an area to lay down these steel beams, I mean, there's some long members of beams and just the roof material, we have to have some area, but we can work with you on that once we get the well field done.
And we coordinated with the county on their kickoff project for the pavilion, so our design and construction team has been in communication with their architects and their project, so they're in tune with that project and coordinating.
Well, and the main reason I bring it up, I know we talked about this last year. There are going to be some challenges with parking behind City Hall, at least until, at this point, probably April 4th of 2025. So just wanted to throw that out to the council and mayor and to you as well, that we need to continue to think about that. Thank you. Thanks.
Can we separate the contingency and FF&E? Because there are 2 different things. And my concern is, we're saying remaining contingency 636, but that also includes the 200,000 for FF&E. So if we eat that up, as I'm seeing this, then we have nothing left for FF&E. Is that correct?
Yes, to some degree, and I think part of part of that move was acknowledging that we technically we have all the furniture. I mean, I know you don't want to furnish a new building with old furniture, but that's something that could be phased in, and that's kind of how we approached it. We were looking at ways to, you all felt comfortable with the contingency, and I know just recently on a meeting, I think it was you, Brian, who said, this is a healthy contingency, and I feel confident in it for this project. So I don't have an opinion necessarily based on separating it out, but obviously if we have to choose between using the contingency to finish the project and getting by with existing furniture until we can budget for it or address it in another manner, I think that was our goal, was that the biggest amount should be available for the contingency, and we can kind of piecemeal provide the FF&E based on public facing offices, and obviously council chambers is kind of the cornerstone of this project, right? So we're not gonna wanna skimp there, but if we have to get by with existing desks and furniture, we can make that work, all that in storage.
That makes sense.
My concern from a cost standpoint was if we use this up, then we're gonna find money for FF&E, which.
But ultimately, if we're that far into a project and we have to use that funding, we're not going to stop the project, so we're gonna have to use the contingency.
Yeah, I just like to separate
Yeah.
it so everybody knows, here's what we're using for true contingency. Now we have to get into FF&E, that triggers something else in terms of, we're gonna have to find more money for FF&E somewhere else.
Mhm.
That's all I'm saying.
Understood.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment. I understand what Alonzo was saying, but at the end of the day, having this conversation, we know that we're gonna be using that money as a contingency to finish the project. And it makes sense to piecemeal and put the furniture back together, back in there. And if we do have any money left over after the project's done, I would like to try to see our council chamber be new, if at all possible. But if not, we might even have to do that as well. But at the end of the day, in our head, we know that $200,000 is supposed to be for FF&E. I just want to make that comment.
All right.
I will point out quickly on the council chambers that the bench part is built in and part of the project regardless. So that will not be affected by FF&E. It would, the chairs that go behind it, or the chairs for the audience would potentially be affected, but the bench would not. So just to make sure that is clear.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need a motion for the change order, Mayor?
Let's see, I think we do. So we got the municipal order approving the change order for City Hall renovation plan. Do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Ms. Tackett. Do I have a second? Second made by Mr. Allen. Are there further questions and or comments?
Mayor, I do have a comment.
Yes, sir.
This is the first step. Well, we've got a little change order here, but we're working it out. We're trading off. We're eating into that contingency money. And it's all fine and well. But, this project was started because we had the money laying there. Again, I said it before and I will continue to say it. Perception is reality. People in Georgetown think we care more about an old building next door than we do about the safety of the citizens of Georgetown. We passed on a fire station and passed on putting it in there for the safety of the citizens on the far east end of town that are outside the 4-minute response zone, and the ones out on the far west end of town on the outside of the 4-minute response zone. And here we are diving into the contingency money, and well, if it's spent, then we're just gonna have to find the money and come up with it somewhere else. Here we go again.
Okay, any other further comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say likewise.
No.
Let the record reflect the motion pass. Next, the municipal order approving the special inspections contract for City Hall renovation project.
I want to speak to that.
Wes, do you want to speak to the special inspections?
I wasn't a part of that meeting, but I
No, I was talking to Brian, actually,
sorry, Brian.
Yeah,
Just
so the
kidding.
special inspections contract, in the approved GMP, there were certain services that are incumbent upon the owner to provide. One of them is special inspections under the Kentucky Building Code. Reason that those are provided by the owner as opposed to the construction manager, because obviously there's a conflict if the construction manager is hiring and procuring the individual or firm that is inspecting their work. So that is incumbent upon the city. So we did engage with Brown Buchanan and use their letter to define the specs and put that out for proposals. And what you have in front of you is a proposal from Terracon that's been fully vetted with the design team, and we've ensured that all of the requirements are met under their proposal. And it was easily the lowest price. So we did vet that to make sure that everything that we needed is included in that, and we are confident that's the case. Do you have anything to add?
I think you wrapped it up very well. Just to be clear, these are code mandatory inspections, and by code, they do have to be provided by the owner. They can't be provided by the contractor, exactly for what Devin said, so that there's not a conflict of interest. And I represent Brown and Cubican. Terracon is a completely different company. I'm not associated with them at all. So they're completely third-party special inspections. That is the proposal. And I will say Devin made sure we had a meeting. We sat down with them, talked through them, the scope of the work, their proposal, their fee, everything, to make sure that they said that they stand behind their number. They're going to provide the services that are needed on the project. So we felt comfortable with, after that meeting, recommending them for approval.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion is made by Ms. Tackett. Do I have
Second.
Second made by Ms. Hampton. Are there further questions and or comments?
And just a comment, this is not part of the GMP, is it?
No.
No.
So we have to, that's a separate budget item?
Right.
Did
And
we
when,
budget for this one?
no, we did not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just, why wasn't that budgeted for? Did I miss that?
When we engaged in the contract for the GMP, there's clear indication in there that what services were not included. We did not ask for a filler number for those items on the spot. I think this is one of the main ones. So we didn't really have any of that information available yet. If Stacy, you could speak to whether, I think the municipal order line is simply budget amendment, right? Yeah.
Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise.
No.
Okay. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Next on the item, we're gonna bump back up, and we're gonna go with number 9, which is the mental health court. We have a presentation this evening. Circuit Court Judge Gaphardt and District Court Judge Sarah Hayes, spending and community and recovery and support officer Patrick Nevitt. So we'll let you all come up and tell us what we got here.
Thank you so much for your time. First, I want to start with saying thank you, and Officer Nevitt, if you want to go ahead and hand those out. I want to say thank you to the city for having the foresight of approving and creating a community recovery support team. Already losing my voice, just started talking. So Officer Nevitt and Officer Jason Christopher and Corey Council are the Georgetown Police Department's community recovery support team, and they are integral members of the drug court team. Judge Hayes and I serve as the specialty court judges for the circuit and the district drug court team, and we preside over the drug courts. And Officer Nevitt and his crew come to all of our meetings, and they have been they've been pitch hitters for us. So we really want to thank the city for that. I also want to thank the city council for giving us your time today to hear about this. This is, I know, kind of a last minute thing. And I also want to thank Devin Golden and Emily Bertram for spending a lot of time with us over the last 2 weeks and going through the law, asking very critical questions. We've had a lot of phone calls and meetings, and so I want to thank you for your time, you and Emily. So what we have is a PowerPoint and then a draft of the Community Corrections Plan that have been handed out to you. The Community Corrections Board, let me start first with mental health court. We don't have one, and we want one. What is mental health court? I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but it's a brand new, I shouldn't say brand new, it's been around for about 20 years. But in Kentucky, it's brand new. There are only 7 mental health courts, and they're currently not funded by the state. We are hoping to change that, and it's very possible before the end of the legislative session, we may receive some funding for mental health court. But the reason why we, within the last 2 weeks, decided to go down this path seeking funding for mental health court is the original plan, the budget that was submitted by the Chief Justice to the legislature included mental health court. The House took it out of the budget. And so the current version of the budget that's passed through the House does not include funding for mental health court. So we were told by the Administrative Office of the Courts, you might want to look for grant funding and seek local support. So that's where we are. We first went to the county, and the county said, we don't have enough time. We wanted to seek this community corrections grant. The deadline to apply for that is February 28th, and this was February 2nd, maybe?
Beginning of February.
It was the beginning of February. And so we first went to the county. They said, we don't have enough time, for whatever reason, to get it before the fiscal court. They said, why don't you try the city? So we approached your city manager and brought this issue, and I want to thank Officer Nevitt also. He said, hey, maybe we could approach the city. So that's where we are. So the mental health court, because there are not currently administrative guidelines that are approved by the Supreme Court for mental health courts, we wanted to follow the Community Corrections Board process for creating a community corrections plan. It's provided by statute, and a community corrections board is a nonprofit entity. It's made up of 8 members that are judges, Commonwealth attorneys, defense attorneys, crime victims, survivors, community leaders, social workers, law enforcement officers, probation officers, and other interested persons. And so we very quickly created a community corrections board. However, our board has had 1 meeting, and we designated our members, we elected our leadership, and we set a meeting schedule. But we have not been created as a nonprofit corporation. And so we've got help from our county attorney who's going to help us with the legal advice and getting set up over the next year as a true community corrections board to apply for the grant next year. But we couldn't get it set up in time. If you'll go to the next slide. So our community corrections board is made up of, got some of our members here today. Judge Hayes and I are the chair and vice chair. Darren Broyles, our Scott County jailer, is the secretary. And then the remaining membership is Sharon Muse-Johnson, our Commonwealth's attorney. Kelly Kearney, the first assistant county attorney. Michelle Rankin, the Woodford County jailer. Sheila Gant from the Bourbon County Jail. Dr. Crystal Miller with WEDCO for District Health Department. And Laura Harney with Department of Public Advocacy. So that's our current membership of our Community Corrections Board. Our Community Corrections Board serves the circuit, so Scott, Bourbon, and Woodford counties. Our Community Corrections Board, next slide, the purpose is to serve those 3 counties, to create a meeting schedule. So we did that. We'll have 3 meetings. I'll get to that next. We have statutory requirements which require us to be a nonprofit corporation. We're not one of those yet. And develop a community corrections plan, which you have the first draft, which has not been approved yet by the Community Corrections Board. But they will be reviewing it before the grant money is going to be dispersed. And again, we're getting legal assistance from the Scott County attorney. So next slide. So our meeting schedule for the Community Corrections Board, we had our first meeting on February 12th. Our next meeting is May 13th. If we get the grant will be issued, the monies will be issued July 1st. So at the next meeting of the Community Corrections Board, we're hoping that the board will review this draft, have enough time for interchange of ideas, addressing any concerns anyone may have, and getting a finalized version that the Community Corrections Board will vote on and approve. And so I've already shared this draft with the Commonwealth's attorney, the county attorneys, and there's questions, there's issues, and we're going to, through that open process, address those questions. We don't have to have a finalized plan today. We just got that verified today by the State Commission. So in order to apply for the grant, we don't have to have a final plan. We just have to have a draft. And so this draft will be attached to the grant application. And then we just have to make sure we have a finalized version approved by the Community Corrections Board before July 1st. All right, so mental health court, what is it? Many of you may have heard of drug court, which Judge Hayes and I preside over. Drug court is meant for high-risk, high-needs offenders, and it's a different process. It's a different theory of thinking of how those are those in the most dire circumstances, high recidivism rates, substance use disorders, and they frankly need life coaches. And that's what drug court is about, is taking those high risk, high recidivist offenders and making them go through this very intense program. And we have had success with our mental health court, our drug court. Our drug court has been around since 2002, so it's existed for a while. But mental health courts, as I said, are burgeoning. The mental health court would provide services to the community through monitoring the treatment of defendants who are residents of Scott, Bourbon, and Woodford counties who have diagnosable mental health disorders. They don't necessarily have substance use disorders. They could have co-occurring, though. Our goals would be successful return to society for these offenders, reduce recidivism, increase public safety, improve the individual's quality of life. And I'm not just talking about the participant in mental health court, but the victims, the families, everyone affected by this individual with a mental health disorder, and improve outcomes for everyone. This next slide. So why a mental health court? Why not just drug court? Well, drug court, like I said, is only for high-risk, high-needs offenders who have substance use disorders. It's a highly structured program with rewards and sanctions. Risk of detention is a real deterrent, and we use it. And there are no mental health court professionals on our drug court team. Mental health court applies to individuals of all needs, not just high-risk, high needs. Detention, we don't use that as a deterrent. Again, these are going to be lower-level offenders, non-violent offenders, and may have a co-occurring substance use disorder, but not always. Again, it is a highly structured program designed specifically to support those with mental health treatment, and we would have mental health professionals on our mental health court team. So it's similar but different, and it specifically addresses a need. And again, the whole goal of these programs, whether drug court or mental health court, is to take away the burden of having overcrowded jails and prisons. And again, we are discerning. We will be discerning about who is allowed to be in the mental health court program. And our program will be small. Mental health court procedures will ensure that during a period of deferred prosecution, which would have to include the prosecutor in that decision-making process, of course, that's deferred prosecution, it would be very rare, or diversion or probation, again, the prosecutors are involved in that decision. The offender is required to complete comprehensive treatment for their diagnosed mental health disorder under the purview of the mental health court. So the way that I see offenders, and I know Judge Hayes, we see them twice a month. They appear in court. We have a one-on-one conversation through an official court proceeding. So it's not just checking in with you. It is having at least a 3-minute in-depth conversation. How are you doing? What are you doing? What are your goals? Are you making sure they're going to their treatments, keeping up with their medications, paying restitution, paying court fines, and working towards becoming an effective member of society. Any defendant who's been charged with a misdemeanor or felony offense, excluding Class A felonies, I don't have it on here, but the draft also excludes Class B felonies. And there's a long list. If you look on page 4, there's an eligibility list. It's a long list, and again, this is a draft. So anyone with clinically diagnosed mental health disorder may be referred pre-conviction or post-conviction into mental health court. Mental health court team would be made up of similar people as the Community Corrections Board. So judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys in a non-adversarial environment, along with probation officers, our recovery support team officers, those that are interested stakeholders in the outcome, as well as mental health professionals would be part of our mental health court team and would determine the eligibility of a particular possible participant. The mental health court team, again, would be comprised of those same people who were part of the Community Corrections Board. It would be funded by the grant and hopefully eventually by the legislature, fingers crossed. Right now, we're not seeking local funding, so there's no required local match to apply for this grant. If we get through the grant process and we hear finally from the legislature, we'll decide whether we need to seek local funding. Next slide, please. The existing programs, I said there's 7 existing programs. Those are Jefferson County is the oldest program. However, we like Fayette. And we used Fayette as our guide, so the draft community corrections plan is actually Fayette County's mental health court procedures, just changed a little bit to retrofit for the 14th Circuit. Again, it's still a draft, so we'll be working with Community Corrections Board on that. But Jefferson and Fayette are not funded by the Community Corrections Grant. However, Hardin, Nelson, Northern Kentucky, Washington and Marion, and Daviess counties are all funded by the Community Corrections Grant. And all of those, we've looked at all of the grants applications for many of them to see how they do it and got some advice from them as well. Next slide, please. So what's the benefit of applying for the Community Corrections Grant and doing a mental health court? So just looking at some of the fiscal year 2019 figures. Well, in the first column, you'll see fiscal year 2020. These were the grant requests. I don't know for sure if they got those, but that's what they asked for. But they had to give figures of the previous year, what the cost-benefit analysis was. So for every dollar spent in Northern Kentucky, they saved $3.30 in spending for deferred incarceration from the program. You'll see Hardin County says for every dollar spent, they saved $3.96 in deferred incarceration. So that's a pretty good return on your value, considering you wouldn't be putting any of your local funding into this program. So the grant apparently works, and mental health courts work. So the Community Corrections Grant, if you'll go to the next slide, what we're asking of the City Council is to be our knight in shining armor, so to speak, and apply for the grant on our behalf. First of all, the 14th Judicial Circuit, we can't apply for the grant. The Community Corrections Board isn't yet set up to apply for the grant, but the city could apply in our place. So what it would look like, we have a deadline of February 28th. Don't worry, we've already drafted everything, and Devin and Emily have already reviewed everything. I think we've got some tweaks in the next couple of days, but for the most part, we got a lot of sample language from the Administrative Office of the Courts, what to request, what type of an amount to request, and this grant request would be for, I think, approximately $217,000. And I'll just tell you right now, they're not going to give us all of that, but that's what we're going to ask for. So the deadline is February 28th. And again, no local match. We request the City of Georgetown to apply, allow Officer Nevitt and the support recovery team apply for the grant. The City of Georgetown and the 14th Circuit would enter into a memorandum of agreement to cover this fiscal year and how it would work, and we've already worked with Devin and Emily to draft that. It's already, a draft has been provided to the Administrative Office of the Courts as well, because Judge Hayes and I and Judge Maddox, our chief circuit judge, we cannot sign contracts. Little quirk. So the director of AOC would have to sign. We would just say we've reviewed it. The State Community Corrections Commission will review the grant applications in late April, so we'll know at the beginning of May whether we have received the grant. The grant would be awarded July 1st and would cover the fiscal year. And either the City of Georgetown or the Administrative Office of the Courts can serve as a fiscal agent. We would request AOC serve as the fiscal agent. We've had some discussions today with the Community Corrections Commission about that. And I think we've received our final guidance, but we're writing the MOA where either the city or the AOC could serve. In the long run, if AOC is the fiscal agent and we switch over next year for the fiscal year 26, and the Community Corrections Board applies for the grant and gets that grant award, we would have the AOC serve as the fiscal agent. So it would be a seamless transition. The MOA would end between the city June 30th of 2025, and then the Community Corrections Board would now be over the mental health court. So that is our request. Developing a community corrections plan is a statutory requirement for the Community Corrections Board. We have to set objectives for the program, goals, realistic goals for reducing offender populations in the prison and jail. We have to do a system of monitoring the numbers of commitments to prison, procedures for identifying targeted offenders, a plan for referral of targeted offenders, procedures for preparing and presenting the community penalty plans to the court. We've got that. We're on the Community Corrections Board. Procedures for obtaining services for existing public or private agencies. We have to do a budget for staff, any contracts, and all other costs we have to develop in that plan. Procedures for monitoring the progress of offenders through the program. Procedures for returning to circuit court those offenders who do not comply with the program, and procedures for evaluating the program's effectiveness. That all has to be included in the Community Corrections Plan. We believe that the current draft we have meets all of those goals. And of course, that's something the Community Corrections Board will be reviewing in an open meeting on May 13th. So if you go to the next slide. So May 13th at the Georgetown Police Department's community room will be the next meeting of the Community Corrections Board. This plan will be reviewed and fully vetted by our members. So next slide. Any questions or comments? Just H, would you like to add anything?
I was just going to say before the council starts speaking, I know we did have a public comment signed up on this topic. If you would like to make your comments now, I know you wanted to make them with the. Okay, I know. If you all are finished.
That's my presentation.
Go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
If Ms. Muse could comment before the council discusses, that'd be great.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I have some things on my laptop here because my handwriting's so bad I could not read it to you if I handwrote it out. So I did send a letter today, and I do intend on supporting mental health court, but with some caveats, not as written. And I understand some of this may be premature, but I don't want to show up and months down the road bring things to you for you to consider. I'd like for you to hear it now, that way you can consider it as things progress. This is, it curiously strikes close to home to me. A dear friend of mine that I've known since he was a boy is actually going to live out the rest of his life in prison because he's mentally ill, and he killed his caregiver because he thought that the voices were telling him that there was a demon inside of her. And because he cared about her, he thought he was going to set her free, and he killed her. But he, unfortunately, is where he needs to be for the public to be safe. For me to fully endorse the program, I would like to ask everybody to consider balancing it out a little bit more. Specialty courts are singularly focused on the defendants. When we've got significant issues about public safety, and victims who have to live with what happened for the rest of their lives. And I would like for there to be more of a balance. So I have some comments and some thoughts, which again are not for today, but for you to consider them, because some of this can be incorporated into the grant language. And I sent my notes to the group. First of all, if you'll note on I think page 4 was referenced as the pages of who can participate. That gave me some hope because that was pretty limited. However, when you flip back to page 2 under definitions, you'll see very specifically that under definitions, it says what are eligible offenses. It is 1, 2, 3, the 4th definition on the page. As you read, it says, hey, we're going to exclude violent offenses and sexual offenses. However, the next sentence completely undoes that. It says exceptions can be made on a case-by-case basis to include otherwise excluded offenders. So that means rapists, child rapists, murderers, people that break in your home and put a gun in your face and pull the trigger and shoot you. And those are things that I have a serious concern about them being considered as part of mental health court, because as you understand, there's not incarceration in this. They remain free and get certain levels of treatment. So that, from a public safety position, concerns me. Also, on one of the slides, KRS 196.725 was referenced as who should be on the board, and it specifically mentioned crime victims or survivors, yet in this particular document, there are no mention of crime victims or survivors being on part of the board. So that's something that I've got a couple ideas I want to share with you. Again, it's going to be brief, but these are some of my concerns. And I'm here, obviously I'm a Commonwealth attorney, so every single day I work with crime victims. Every single day I'm with the people on the other end of what we're talking about here. The ones that didn't have any kind of a choice or say in the matter, and all of a sudden their lives are just wrecked with tragedy. And so obviously most people do care very much about crime victims. Marcy's Law has been enacted here, and I think it's important that we show victims in this, as we navigate this new world, so to speak, that they matter. And so how would I suggest we show them that? I think it is important to give them a voice, which it does mention in there that crime victims will be consulted. They'll have a say in what happens. But let me share some things with you to talk about. What does that actually look like? I mean, it looks great on paper, right? One more minute? Oh. Well, crime victims, you need to take time to develop a relationship with them for them to trust you. It takes time. And it's not something that's quick and easy. But if you have a victim who's 18 years old or younger, something happens to them, I assure you that mom and dad and grandma and grandpa are not going to agree on what needs to happen. So I would suggest that a permanent position on the board would always be a victim's advocate who is trauma-informed and trained. That person can speak on behalf of the victim, keep in touch with the victim, develop relationships. Another thing, quite frankly, it can be every day I work with victims and tell them, you have input, I give them a lot of input, but the final say is on me, because that's quite a burden to ask. In mental health cases, most of the times the victims are loved ones. It's their father, it's a relative. They have to live with that relationship long after the case is over. So to make them the only voice that stands between their loved one and incarceration, I think is very unhealthy, can create a lot of trauma, a lot of pain and stress. So do I believe it's a good concept? Yes. But we have to balance it out. I believe a victim's advocate needs to be on the position permanently. It could be part of the grant. I believe everybody involved needs to go through trauma-informed training. And again, this phrase, exceptions can be made on a case-to-case basis, means you are essentially allowing any violent offender to walk right back out and not have a moment of incarceration. And sometimes the government just can't fix everybody. And I'd like for there to be some serious restrictions, and then I will support it.
Before the council engages in conversation, I do want to kind of define what the council is being asked to do. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Muse. So on the agenda, there's an indication that this plan is being approved by the council, and we wanted the agenda item to be more all-encompassing, but after researching the statutes a little more closely, the council is not going to be asked to approve this plan. That is a job of the board. We determined that the board, it's completely inconsistent with the council's role. So all council is being asked to do is to approve a grant application. We did make sure, because I think continued education on something like this is important, we did want to clarify that as with all grant applications, the council would also have to accept the grant. So today's approval is limited to being able to engage with the 14th Circuit and apply for the grant funding and approve the memorandum of agreement in the substantially same form, which we've worked with the court to define kind of the roles between us. That community corrections plan will have to be approved by the board, and I know Ms. Muse is a member of that group, and obviously I'm sure you'll voice the same feedback to that group as you all determine what document you adopt to govern the mental health court in the circuit. So I just wanted to add that so the council understood what their role was.
And so you will be listening to this as you try to amend the draft before it's sent in?
Yes, correct. And there was a victim's advocate at the meeting. I think as it goes forward, I think.
With the Versailles Police Department.
Yeah, the Versailles Police Department had several members at our initial meeting, and the victim's advocate was there. So that's definitely a key component of the mental health court team. And to respond to the comment about, specialty courts and drug courts are geared towards the defendant. I know with the district court program, that's not true. It's not a defendant-oriented program, and the prosecutor is part of our staff and oversees all of the choices that we make and votes, and has all the same information that the rest of the team has in order to make a decision about whether a candidate is appropriate or what actions we're going to take with somebody who's in drug court. It would be the exact same for mental health court. And we're not asking you all to approve any of those specifics today.
Right.
We need this to get the grant for this year. I found out on Friday that them taking it out of the state funding was an oversight, an error, and the Senate's going to put it back in. I'm supposed to find out later. I was supposed to find out later today, but I haven't heard back from the judge from Louisville, who was meeting with legislators and key members about the AOT, which is separate. But they confirmed on Friday, or the lobbyists and stuff that had been meeting with the legislators in the Senate, that it was an error in taking that funding out. The grant would enable us to hire a supervisor and potentially a case manager. And then we need wraparound funds to get the people who are in mental health court the treatment that they need. So with the state funding and then with this grant, we would combine that money. And like Judge Gabhart said, we've talked to AOC and looked at these other programs, modeled it after those programs. So most of them have applied for the grant and received the grant. There's money out there. We need this. We have people being incarcerated in Scott County. I had one that I had been sitting there for a year. That's draining our funds, that's draining the resources that we have at the detention centers. And that person would have been a perfect candidate for mental health court, but I didn't have the option to probate her to mental health court. The prosecutor didn't have that option. We discussed that in open court last Thursday. So our hands were tied.
And so this draft
Yes.
that we get to attach is not in its final form, and
No.
I'm hearing that there could still be conversation
Yes.
to amend with some of the concerns that have been
Yes.
expressed to make sure that there are victims' advocacy taken into consideration
Yes.
with this.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another question. I'm very much in support of this. I think it's a need. I think we have too many people in jail that could absolutely benefit from something like this. Is there a reason why this is not an interlocal? I realize that it's coming to us, but it went to them first, and they did not feel like they had enough time to deal with it. Is that what I heard?
We had an initial meeting with all 3 counties. There were a lot of people on that Zoom meeting because we realized that the deadline was coming up and that they had taken the funding out that AOC had expected that we were going to get. And so I know that Woodford County and Scott County and Bourbon County are all planning to contribute. They have funds. They have all 3 basically said they're going to add to this money.
We just didn't have enough time to get on everybody's
But fiscal
meeting.
court is not
we just had
involved.
It's really not fitting to be an interlocal, and I'll let Emily speak to it a little bit as
Yeah.
well, but it's really a matter of eligibility to be on the grant application.
Okay.
Absent this issue of them not having their board qualified as a nonprofit yet, the council would have virtually no say in this process at all anyways, and won't have any say in the process if and when the board is formulated and serves as the applicant. So, you know, there really wouldn't be, if there comes a point where local funding is requested and it comes to the council, it would come in
Right.
the form of an allocation. There will be no administration. There, you know, the MOA is simply to make sure that we're getting what we need in terms of reporting.
Okay.
Because as the legal applicant, we will be responsible for submitting those reports.
Right.
But aside from that,
But the Community Corrections Board will be designed and serve all 3 counties, so it would be your interlocal agreement without having to go through that
Yeah.
interlocal process.
Yep.
And we had to do this very quickly. We publicized to as many people as we could, stakeholders, and asked those stakeholders to share information about that meeting. So it's an open public meeting. It'll be on May 13th. We have the Community Corrections Board. It was all volunteers. So if we have anybody else who's interested in being a part of that process, you can come to that May 13th meeting. If there are victims groups, we absolutely invite them. And just to address, there was a question about training. Part of the grant would provide for training for the mental health court staff and team members. There's a National Association of Drug Court Professionals, which is now called All Rise. And it's specifically geared towards, they provide annual training for specialty courts. And so part of that grant would be sending them to that training as well.
Okay, thank you.
A question?
I don't-
Go ahead.
Oh,
No, please.
I was gonna say, I don't have a question, I've got a comment, but is this gonna be for a motion, or how is this gonna?
we just got a resolution on the agenda authorizing the application, so,
I know it's time, a couple of days or so, or?
yeah, tonight the council will be asked to consider the resolution that's in front of you, which essentially simply authorizes, the mayor to sign the application and acknowledges that the council will have to accept the funds or accept the grant award if granted the funding, and enter into an MOA with the AOC to define obligations essentially.
All I wanna say is, this is something that's very much needed. I can speak, the drug court has been so good for the community and for the people involved. We're all affected by someone with mental illness, so someone's gotta take a start to do this. The county fiscal court can't right now. I'm all for it. I just want to say, it's just something that's very much needed. It's so much mental illness out there. I have family members myself. There's no help, there's nothing, but this is such a good cause. And I just want to say, I'm all for it, because all they're doing is asking for us just to be to start the grant. There's nothing to do with us right now, but I just want to say that I'm all for it and got my vote, yes.
Yes, Ms. Allen.
Is she making a motion?
Well, you gonna make a motion?
If I can make a motion, I would
Do I have a
definitely like to
motion?
make a motion for
Okay,
this.
we have a motion made by Ms. Brent. Do I have a
I'll
second?
Second.
Second made by Mr. Allen. Now, are there further questions and/or comments?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
I see you're asking for $217,000 for the grant, and that's your total budget. What is your activity if you come up short of the grant or you don't get any? What's your activity to secure the funding for your budget?
So we're, of course, hoping the legislature will fund, which we have assurance that they will, which my understanding, and I could be wrong, if that money comes through the legislature, the State Community Corrections Commission has judges on it, and they will be aware of that. They will most likely subtract that out from our request. They're not gonna grant the full $217,000. So say they give a fraction of what we're requesting, then we would go back, look at what the funding was provided through the budget, what the funding is provided through the grant, and look at either other grants, because there are other grants we can apply for, or request local support. And we've already had interest from the fiscal courts, from all 3 fiscal courts. We haven't talked any money yet, but we have to figure out exactly what we need after we go through this grant process and the budget process.
So it's my understanding that you are gonna go back to the, like, Bourbon and Woodford for also get support if needed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the budget was based with Judge Gebhardt was working with AOC, and basing that on 15 to 20 participants from all 3 counties. It's not gonna be a huge program, obviously, because Scott County and the size and the number of justice-involved people, that percentage will be greater for Scott County, but the money is gonna be for all 3 counties. The city of Georgetown is just gonna be the signer of the paperwork to enable us to just apply for the grant. Hopefully, if we get the legislative funding, it's possible we could still hire 1 person and get it up and running and then apply for the grant next year.
And just to give you an idea, Fayette County's mental health court program has about 30 participants. So even for the size of Fayette County, it's not a huge population because you're hyper-focused on those lower-level offenders, nonviolent, non-sexual offenders with mental health disorders. You really want to focus in on them.
Okay. Motion has been made, properly second, and there's no more questions or comments. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed.
I appreciate what you all are doing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I'm glad we're gonna have balance. Balance is good.
Okay.
Thank you very, very much.
All right. Let me find my agenda here. Okay, moving right along. Okay, now we have, let's see, it's B, resolution approving the memorandum agreement application for state community corrections grant and action plan. Okay, so we got that one. All right, so next one I think is time for GMWSS.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just as a housekeeping item, I am requesting that we pull item E from your agenda tonight. We are asking to have a discussion with you, very important discussion that is based on anticipated numbers, and without a crystal ball, that's very difficult. And if you would allow, I'd just like to take a few days extra time to make sure that I'm at a 100% confidence in what we're presenting to you. I just want to be sure, and so requesting that we delay that discussion. Nothing sinister there. We had a brief discussion on this that the news graphic reported on at our last board meeting. I want to be sure on some numbers, and so I apologize that I packed your council packet full of information and then I'm delaying. I do apologize. I apologize to Mr. Singleton, his team that was here for that discussion tonight, but I'll just say the good thing about that discussion is it is a $23 million South Sewer Extension project. The project is going to come in under budget. It's just making sure that I understand what is the remaining work, what is the remaining schedule. So I will bring that back, and I believe Mr. Singleton had signed up for a public comment on that. Did I cover it? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Okay.
If we could jump into items A through D. First item is a purchase order for Brintag. This is a 4-week supply of sodium hypochlorite for a water treatment plant, 4,500 gallons at a cost of $11,205. This is our primary disinfectant at the water treatment plant. It's a budgeted purchase. It is a bid item. Any questions on that purchase order? Do you like me to run through all of them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go through all.
Next is a purchase order for service specialties in the amount of $15,913.11. It's purchased for a new variable frequency drive, VFD for our Pleasant Valley pump station, wastewater pump station. VFD, it does control the motor output and for the pump in the station, and it's by varying the frequency and the voltage, so we get the right power to the motor. These things do go out over time. This price includes the equipment and labor for the replacement, and we received quotes from multiple vendors with service specialties providing the low price, and they've completed this work for us a number of times in the past, so we have confidence in the vendor, and this is funded through our operations budget for our collections department. So any questions on that purchase order? Okay. Next is a purchase order for Xylem for replacement of our carbon resin at wastewater treatment plant number 2. This is in the amount of $227,550, one of our larger operational purchases for chemical. This is a 12-month supply. We do this one time a year, this change out. It is a sole source chemical purchase. However, good thing is in the future, we do think that there is another vendor that is telling us that they can supply this at a much cheaper price. However, that will require some testing, some verification that their product can do the same as the product that we have, but we're hopeful there. Carbon resin is used as a metal and contaminant removal part of our process in the wastewater treatment plant. It helps us meet our discharge permit limit, so we have to have this chemical budgeted purchase. Currently still, I would say, sole supply till we get verification from this other vendor. Finally, we have our monthly pay app purchase order for Judy Construction. This is in the amount of $2,469,829.66. So that's $2,469,829.66. This is for work completed on wastewater treatment plant number 1 upgrade and expansion in January of this year. This payment, it represents 69% budget spent, broken down between 45% work complete, 24% stored materials. We continue to chase that March 25 beneficial occupancy date, and we're working and trying to be as creative as possible with our contractor that we can best that date and bring that in before March, making sure we are doing everything possible. I keep reminding people of that. That is the contractual date. My goal, Judy Construction's goal, to beat that. So, any questions?
All right, is there a motion?
Motion, Mayor, for all 4.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Tackett.
Second.
Second made by Mr. Showalter. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motions for A through D, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that those motions carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have city engineer, municipal order approving streetlights on General John Payne Boulevard.
Thank you, Mayor. General John Payne is in the Canewood subdivision. It was developed in probably in the 90s, and there's a gap in there where they didn't have. There's no streetlights. Streetlights are spaced at about every 250 feet. And so we're going back, I'm asking if y'all will let me go back and pick up that gap with 6 lights along General John Payne at the addresses that are listed on the letter that I have to pick up that dark area and make it safer for the people in Canewood that have requested it.
Do you have the cost on that, Eddie?
Yes, it's about $8,500. It's the exact cost is
$83.47.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
About $8,500.
Do you have a motion?
Motion.
Motion made by Ms. Tackett.
Second.
Second made by Mr. Hampton. Other questions and or comment? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Hey.
I know we've had a lot of discussion on streetlights.
Oh, yeah, we
For
have.
several years now, which, again, to me, that's not the issue. But the issue to me is this is an area inside of a development.
Yes.
Should the developer have skin in the game on it? I mean, it's not a real large cost, but it is a cost.
Right. So this predates our current ordinance for streetlights, how we operate today. Today, what we would do is if a developer came in with a subdivision plat, he would have the streetlights identified on that plat, and we would collect the money. The city would collect the money from the developer. Stacy keeps it in a special account for streetlights, and then as the subdivision gets built out, you put the lights in last. at about an 80% build-out rate. So about when 80% of the houses are built, you'll go in and put the streetlights in. In this case, on this one, I think what's happened is the two subdivision phases that lapped into one another, they had a gap in there where the lights just didn't go in. And now we're going back and having to pick it up and use those funds for that purpose. Does that make sense?
Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Next, we have in finance, and Ms. Stacy Clark is going to come up. She's going to talk about the quarterly financial update.
Yes, good evening. The first thing I'll talk about, I've already passed everything out, you should have it, is our revenue update that we do each quarter. And this will play into the first reading of the budget amendment. So as I go through, I will point that out. For the payroll tax collections, you can see through December, we have collected approximately $8,025,000 in payroll taxes. You will see that December looks a little low, and that is because there has been a delay in filing returns for certain employers, so it will not remain that low, and once those returns are received, I will update this number when I present it at the next quarter. I wanted to show you what I went ahead and did, just so you could see it in relation to what we've collected so far, is in the budget amendment that you'll see next, we are recommending a few increases to our revenue projections. Payroll taxes being one of those. We originally budgeted $16 million for payroll taxes for this fiscal year. As you can see from this, we collected $17.3 million last year. And then we are expecting from now until June 30th to see an additional increase in payroll taxes for some raises that had been given by local employers. So I'm recommending that we increase our payroll tax budget from $16 million to $17,650,000. So I went ahead and included the proposed or revised projection on this, so you can kind of see how that relates to what we've collected so far. So again, payroll taxes are trending well, just we're missing a few returns for December that will probably get filed this month or next month. For net profits, you can see that we have collected $2,873,387. We typically budget $2.5 million for that. As always, I want to remind you on this one that we have been carrying over that credit, so that's why you see June has a negative number. It gets moved to July of the next year, and then we have to wait on those returns to be filed to see if there's still a credit balance or not. Those returns typically don't come in until July. So, because once you have your filing date and extensions, most people take the extension. So, by around July 15th, we'll know how much of that credit is or is not still being carried forward, because that credit does reduce the amount of revenue at the end of each year. For insurance premium tax collections, I went ahead and showed collections through February because that shows our first 2 quarters. You can see that we have collected $3.642 million. This is another revenue that I am recommending that we increase. We budgeted $6.3 million for insurance premium taxes. Based on the prior year collections, I was recommending that we increase that projection by $700,000. So you'll see that reflected there as a revised budget estimate of $7 million, and you'll see that number in the budget amendment as well. Property taxes, obviously we've collected the bulk of our property taxes for the year, but still have a little bit to go. We have collected $2,538,000, and I'm recommending a revised budget estimate of $2,582,000, which is $100,000 more than what we had initially projected. And lastly, our alcoholic beverage regulatory fees. For the first 2 quarters, I'm showing $717,484. There is still a little bit, a couple of late filers, I confirmed with Tracy, so there's still a little bit more to come in on the October to December quarter. However, I do not anticipate it being as high as last year. I think last year might have been a little bit of an anomaly on that quarter. So we're about 45% through that budget, and we'll keep an eye on that and for the year. So any questions on the revenue? And then, of course, as always, I won't go through it, but you have a copy of the line-by-line budget detail report. Yes?
So, jotting down some quick notes. If the numbers hold out through the end of June, you're anticipating, am I correct that you're anticipating about an additional $2.6 million?
To do some quick math in my head, probably, yes. I think that's about, I had about 700, 800, and then 1.6. So yeah, that's about 2.45 million just in those three revenues, I believe, if I do that math correctly.
And the deficit, when we passed the budget, we were anticipating, was it about a $1.4 million?
The original budget, the first amendment that we did, and I'll talk about this when we do the budget
Okay.
amendment next, but it does greatly reduce our anticipated deficit for the end of the year. So with these budget projections as well as some new items that have been approved, so.
Well, with the four new items, revenue, it looks like a little over $3 million.
Yes, yes. So yeah, the ones that are in our typical quarterly report is about 2.6, but investment income, I've adjusted that as well in the budget amendment. So if there's any other questions on these 5 revenues, I'll address those, and then I'll look at the investments with you.
Stacey, just one quick
Yes.
question. On the net profits, we're already at 115% of
Yes.
our budget, but you didn't increase anything there. Is that because of the potential credits coming through?
Yes, because unfortunately, I will not know until
Okay.
after fiscal year end. It'll be the end of July before I know whether or not that credit carried over. That credit has been about 1.4 million.
Okay, so we
So.
potentially could have some pickup there as well.
Yes, could be a little bit, but we don't know that one yet. We'll know more, obviously, most returns are due April 15th.
Okay.
So we'll know a little more once April 15th gets through, and then, like I said, the big returns, they usually extend until
So there's
July.
potential that we could get very close to balancing.
Very close,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
Okay, the next thing on my quarterly report, I just want to, give you a quick update on our bank balances and investment balances. Just want you to keep in mind the far right-hand column for annual earnings. Again, keep in mind that some of these, investments, such as the money market and the certificate of deposit at Central Bank, we just opened those in December, so obviously we're not gonna see a full year of income. I just wanted to show you on an annualized basis, this is what those would earn. And right now, we're rolling over that CD on a month-to-month basis. Devin and I are working with Baird to come back for a presentation to Finance Committee to determine how much of some of our capital projects we want to pay for in cash. And once we've got that, and I've got an updated draw schedule on City Hall, I'll be able to tell you how much of that we'll be able to keep rolling over. But for now, the 20 million continues in that CD that's earning approximately 5%. Yes.
Sorry for continuing to interrupt. On
Yes.
the sheet that you're discussing right now with the CDs,
Yes.
the estimated annual earnings, I think, is very important for all of us to see. But do you have an idea, based on where the money was versus where it is now, what the net gain is going to be?
Well, that's in our budget amendment. I had estimated 170,000. That included a little bit of money from the Stockyards investment that we had done. I went ahead and added up with the new CD at Central Bank with, sorry, I'm pulling, I've got it back here. So with our main account is earning around 30,000 or so per month. The CD, just kind of assumed if we keep it through June 30th, we would earn, I had approximately, I think I put 250, that may have even been a little low on that one. And then Stockyards, I had 250. I'm increasing the investment earnings budget by 690,000. But, so we originally, after our first amendment, we had a $170,000 budget in investment income, and I'm increasing that by $690,000.
Fantastic.
And so,
If I may,
Yes.
Stacy, I was just doing a quick calculation here. With the estimated annual earnings coming in, it looks like about close to 1.7 million for everything. We're recognizing 690 in this fiscal
Yes.
year, and then with the 170 that we already have budgeted, we could be looking at a potential of another 900,000 into the next fiscal year.
potentially, yes, and it'll depend on, a lot of it's gonna depend on that $20 million CD
Right.
and how much of that we can keep
Right.
in that CD versus how much we'll
Yeah,
have to
but I'm
use
just
to
basing
pay
on these numbers
for the
right
city
now.
hall renovation, so. And just a reminder, as always, obviously, we will budget accordingly based on our planned investments, and just a reminder that our balances could change over the course of the next year, and of course, interest rates could change over the course of the next year, so while we are earning this money, we will earn it while we can, and then we'll budget for it accordingly. But I just want to be careful about using it for
Yeah, that's-
recurring expenses. It's great for
Yeah.
one-time expenses or for this year to make up this year's deficit. But just for long-term planning, just to keep in mind that the balances will go down, and interest rates could fluctuate based on the market, so.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other questions?
I have a question
Yes.
about the ARPA funds. How much of the ARPA funds, have they all been dispersed now?
They have not been dispersed. Most of them have been committed.
Right.
I need to
I
look
understand
because
that.
I believe there may be, we had allocated some for Parks and Rec capital projects. I need to touch base. I believe I've sent an email to Kim to touch base because the HVAC project may have come in under budget. Either that or she just needs to send me an invoice for additional balances. The fire trucks we've ordered, those have obviously not been paid, but have been committed. So I'm going to review that to see if there's anything hanging out there. There may be a couple $100,000 that we can bring back and discuss. I think they have to be committed by the end of this year.
Yeah, that's what I
And-
was
yeah.
wondering.
So anything that, we would need to recommit any extra funds by the end of this year, and then they have to be spent by December of 2026.
Has the Georgetown College ARPA funds been given?
It's been allocated, obviously via municipal order. We're working on a contractual arrangement to get the funds there. Obviously, we know that as a private institution, there's some
Right.
hurdles there, so we're working on that actually actively. We kind of was dormant for a while, but that's back at the table, yeah.
Okay, good.
And that was a $200,000 allocation.
The allocation is still there, but
Okay.
I'm waiting on the green light to write the check.
Thanks.
Right.
Any other
Okay.
questions? All right.
All right, so I guess we're ready for the first reading of the amendment to the budget ordinance. Sponsors are Greg Hampton and Alonzo Allen.
An ordinance amending the annual budget ordinance for fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. Summary, general fund. Prior year revenues are decreased by $1,886,395.27. Property tax revenues are increased by $100,000. License, fee, and permit revenues are increased by $2,350,000. Intergovernmental revenues are increased by $96,077.50. Other income is increased by $690,000. General government expenses are increased by $309,793.73. Police expenses are increased by $214,018. Fire expenses are increased by $133,000. Code enforcement expenses are increased by $250. Public works expenses are increased by $40,000. Community service expenses are increased by $12,000. Interlocal expenses are increased by $626,620.50. Transfers to other funds are increased by $14,000. Business Park Fund. Prior year revenues are increased by $500,000. Capital expenses are increased by $500,000. 911 Fund. Intergovernmental revenues are increased by $1,075. Dispatch 911 expenses are increased by $2,150. Grant Fund. Federal grant revenue is increased by $6,000. Local grant revenue is increased by $3,000. Police expenses are increased by $6,000. Public works expenses are increased by $3,000. ARPA Fund. Community service expenses are decreased by $100,000. Interlocal expenses are increased by $100,000. Cemetery fund, intergovernmental revenues are increased by $14,000. Transfers from other funds are increased by $14,000. Cemetery expenses are increased by $28,000. All ordinance or parts of this ordinance is conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. This ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to law. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 629 North Broadway, Georgetown, Kentucky 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time February 26, 2024.
All right. Next is item C, the municipal order approving contract for Marshall Park dugout construction.
Okay, just, as many of you may know, the dugouts at Marshall Park Field 3 blew over in a windstorm last year. We've gone through 2 or 3 different procurement processes trying to get an accurate and reasonable price for this, as well as working with Eddie and Shay and our risk manager, Patrick, to come up with a slightly modified design that will help them to hopefully be less susceptible to wind damage, because it's not the first time they've blown over. So with that said, in our last bid process, we have a low bidder that we would like to recommend, and we received a insurance check for $18,200. So it's about a $5,000 difference right now. We have resubmitted the request to our insurance to see if they would be willing to cover the difference, even though it's a different design. It's not a complete replacement. So if we can get it covered, we will. Otherwise, it would be a $5,000 price.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion is made by
Second.
Mr. Stone, second made by Ms. Tackett. Are there further questions and or comment?
Yes, Mayor, why was this taken out of Parks and Rec's hands?
Well, initially, and this is a conversation we've had at the interlocal committee level several times, but the property is owned and insured by the city.
Right.
So, you know, we don't have projects like this very often, but ultimately the party insuring the property should handle the procurement and administer the project. So I know Parks was working on this. Ultimately, I know they had a couple of hurdles to overcome there, but in talking with our insurer and working through it, we determined it was better that the city administer projects for which they insure the property.
So is this all new? I mean, Parks and Rec's handled this for years. Is there some reason why now, all of a sudden, no, we gotta handle it now?
No, I mean, I know that this came up at interlocal committee earlier this year. I'm trying to think of when the meeting was, and the discussion was we need to determine how our little interlocal operates. As of now, we provide funding to Parks and Rec, but the way the county engages with Parks and the way the city engages with Parks is different, and we determined that as a city, it was ultimately best that we manage projects for which we own the property.
And then one last question, why did it take so long to get to this point? The girls are about to play softball now.
I can't speak to that. We just took the project over about a month ago. So.
But I do want to say that, you know, the county is also taking care of their things that happen in the county. They're taking responsibility for that. So just to let you all know that. Okay, we had a motion made and properly second. If there are further questions and or comments, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Next. Okay,
Do you want to?
ready? It's got the fire resolution approving application for assistance to firefighters AFG grant.
Yes, so this is a program that we seek out. I say we, Georgetown Fire Department is very good at seeking out funding under this program. It's a very good program. We consistently are funded. You'll note that this application is for approximately, the federal funds would be $415,000 with local match not to exceed $46,000. So what they're applying for are self-contained breathing apparatus machines with the air pack and a face piece. They have enough of the canisters, I think I'm saying that right, so they're actually able to supplement it and not apply for the full unit, so that's helping us in terms of the cost and the amount that is submitted on the application. So like I said, this is a FEMA program that we apply for pretty much every time it's available, and I think you'll remember we had those cascade systems that we were funded. I'm trying to think how long ago that was. It wasn't that long ago, but these self-contained breathing apparatus machines pair in with those. That's the extent of my knowledge about self-contained breathing apparatus.
Do you need a motion for that,
Yes, I do.
Mayor? Motion.
Motion made by Ms. Taggett, second by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Next is the police. Want to come up? Municipal order approving the vehicle leases. I believe these are the ones because of the 3 new positions that we are putting in play for the traffic unit. Is that, am I mistaken? Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, so tell us about it.
So with the addition of the 3 new officers for the traffic unit, this is an addition to the police department, so we need to add 3 vehicles to our fleet. With these 3 vehicles, my understanding is that they are available on a car lot, available sooner than if we were to order them with the order for next year. That's why we're asking for them now. We can access these vehicles a lot quicker than ordering them like we typically do.
Motion.
Second.
Motion is made
Second.
by Mr. Stone, second by Ms. Tackett. Are there further questions and or comments?
Yeah, but just a comment, why would we not put like the annual cost for these 3 vehicles? And this just says monthly lease for 1 vehicle, for each vehicle, right? But we can't see what the annual cost is. Just curious. I mean, that would be helpful because we're looking at this on a monthly. I'd rather see things from an annual perspective. I have the number, I'm just saying, just curious why we're not here.
So, all right, go ahead.
For all 3 vehicles per year, it's 51,272. I mean, if we wanted to.
51,272?
51,272, that's for all 3 vehicles for a year.
3 included.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion made and properly second. And there either further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have council comments. Again, if you have something that a constituent has brought to your attention, again, email me what those are, or let the city clerk know what we're here to look at, and like we did, we'll update for you, let you know what I will sign it to a director, and we'll hopefully get information for you. I'm going to start with Mr. Stone, but you should go first.
I've got nothing right now.
Okay. Mr. Allen.
Yes, Bluegrass Rides has, now there are public transportation, they have a lot of annual ridership, but in terms of the pickup locations, most of them are not conducive to inclement weather. In some cases, there's a bench with no covering, and in some cases, there isn't anything. So just want to pose or
Look at that.
yeah, if you can take a look at that, see if you can get some benches that are covered so our citizens aren't sitting out in the weather. Hats off to the fire department, with federal grant of $1,000, that's excellent. We did some training last week, and just curious about the terms of what's the plan going forward in terms of the communication structure. So the public is aware how, because we get a lot of feedback from the public, and just maybe clarifying to the public what that process is going to be.
Well, the process is if they email you, you are to email to me. And then I will in turn get the information out to my directors and so on, and then we'll get that information back to you to get back to your constituents. Okay? Okay?
And in your mayor's comments, you talked about Georgetown Scott County Resource Commission, and it's reported that things were going well. Can we get a more definitive update on, not like now, but
Oh, what,
the Revenue Commission in terms of some things that
Yes, I will get that to you, yes.
I think the scope of that comment, I think he's referring to your mention of the city clerk's office, just the property tax
Property
collection.
tax collection was increased, yeah. And I can get that to you, as to, that's sent out to us, and I'll make sure that you'll get that. Okay? Okay, Ms. Tackett?
I'm good, Mayor, thank you.
Ms. Brent?
Kind of touched on it, but I just had a comment for tonight. And this is more so, this is just a comment, I'm not trying to be, let me just read my comment. I just want to let the community and my constituents know that elected me to city council that due to circumstances beyond my control, I'm unable to fulfill the role as their voice as I thought I could when I came and ran for this position. The powers lie between the mayor and the CAO to address their concerns effectively. Matters related to trash, speed humps, etc. should be directed to the mayor and the CAO, as these fall outside the city council's purview. My position as a city council member is primarily handling budget and ordinance issues. I apologize as this was brought to the attention of the council members during the training session last week with the KLC, which is the Kentucky League of Cities, per the mayor's request. Please ensure that any emails forwarded to me with concerns you have with the city are directed to both the mayor and the CAO, for a response. I am bound by the statutes that limit my actions to specific tasks. I also want to say that just rest assured, I still, even though I'm bounded by certain statutes, I'm still going to be a voice for my community. I just wanted to clarify and just put that out on the record. I apologize because like I said, we was in training last week, and I thought I had a little bit more power than I actually do, but it is up to the mayor and the CAO, and that's who, when I have a lot of constituents asking questions, and I would call Eddie or someone, a director or whatever, and try to get an answer, trying to help be a team or whatever, but I didn't realize that that wasn't my authority. So please still reach out to me. I'm still your voice, but I'll just direct it to the mayor and the CAO, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay.
There have been a lot of things happening at this meeting, and it's been a really good meeting. Thank you, Stacy, for the fiscal updates. I'm excited that we're in increasingly good shape with our budget. I want to do a lot of things for families and our community as well, but we are bound by budget concerns. And as Todd has said, one of our things is going to be a fire engine or fire station that we're going to need to look at. And have you sent us a final list of the priorities?
So the priorities that Mayor listed in his comments, we're still fleshing that out, but that list, and I can send that out.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Still fleshing out, because once you get past those main four,
right,
the ideas are a little bit over the board, but Fire Station 4 was consistently in the top 4 or 5 priorities listed. It's just more once you get to like number 5, it's a little bit across the board. But yeah, we can send that out, just a kind of compilation of those priorities that the council submitted.
That would be helpful. Thank you. I go to the Scott County Emergency Planning Committee meetings, and they met this week, and there was a little bit of a glitch in the meeting. But one question that I've asked Ricky Palmer to follow up on is, I know everybody's aware that we had a big AT&T outage that affected a lot of things, and there were communities in Kentucky that even had dispatch and other emergency services where people could not call in. And I'm asking that body and for Ricky to get back to make sure that we let people, even some communities actually got on and let communities know, do you know you can get on Wi-Fi, and do you know you can run to a neighbor? And this all sounds elementary, but when people are in a crisis situation, they don't think clearly. Some of them even gave videos of how to get on their cell phone and find alternate ways to communicate. Thankfully, we did not have that problem here in Georgetown. I did ask the mayor and Devin, and that was not a problem here. People's individual phones, but our emergency services, to my knowledge, were not affected. But I just want to make sure that we know going forward that we're prepared for something like that, because I think it's going to increasingly happen. Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome. Mr. Hampton.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to echo Willow's comments on the budget, I think, it's about time we had some good news on the budget. Going from a 1.9 million, almost 2 million deficit down to basically 101,000.
Right.
I think it's very achievable that we could run,
Balanced
it's just
budget.
my personal opinion, that we could come out even or ahead. So, I think that's really something that this council and the mayor and his staff can really look at and let everybody know. We're in a good situation right now. So, we got a lot of challenges ahead of us. I do realize that, budgetary, capital, operating, but, we'll get through those and we'll work through the capital request and hopefully be able to provide what is being asked for. So, thank you.
Mr. Showalter. All right. If there's no other further business brought for this council, stand adjourned.